Hello and welcome to this demo video of the new HHT functionality in Khaos Control, HHT2. For those of you familiar with the existing HHT functionality, the setup options in terms of packaging, batch sizes, etc. are very much the same for HHT2. Because of additional functionality that's been introduced with HHT2, there is another setup option that needs to be considered. This can be found in System Data under Stock Location Types. And this is where the minimum interval for the perpetual inventory count for different location types is defined. And we'll be looking at this functionality in more detail later in the video. We'll now take a look at the interface on the HHT2 device itself. Once logged in, the device will show buttons for the various functions available to the user. Bear in mind that not all these may be visible depending on how your user permissions have been set up. One feature that's been added for HHT2 is the Options button. This will reveal two further buttons for Options and Data. We'll start by taking a look at the Options. Here we can control whether reasons are required when adjusting stock. We can turn on batch code functionality. We can decide whether we want to show a picking trace summary during a pick job, and whether we want to auto-assign items to locations when booking in. We can then determine which of the Sales Invoice Manager stages orders are to be moved to once picking is complete, and we can decide whether or not we want to enforce the scanning of a pick location when a pick is being made. We've decided to turn this function off on our system. From here we can also enable the Pack Boxes functionality, which we'll see later. The Data button controls which information is shown on the screen of the HHT device during various operations. Note that there is an option here for stock image. This isn't currently supported and this is for future use. We'll now take a look at how the picking operation works with HHT2. Here we've created a sales order with 3 items on it. By going to Sales Invoice Manager, we can see that the order is now in staging. The process from here on in is essentially the same as it is for HHT1. We'll go to Batch Trolley Picking. This time we'll select Standard Values, click OK. We'll print off the documentation and move the invoice into the HHT picking stage. We can now close the documentation. We can see we now have a scannable batch number as well that we can use to load the invoice to be picked into the HHT device. We'll now return to the HHT device and press the picking button, and then we can enter or scan the batch code or invoice code of the order to be picked. The next screen will show us the first stock item to be picked and the recommended pick location. The source location field is used to scan in the pick location if you have that option enabled, which we don't. The location selection drop-down shows alternative locations that the item may be able to be picked from, but we're going to go ahead and use the recommended location. The next screen will show us information about the stock item and the overall and location specific availability, and it's here that we scan in the code of the item that we're picking. In the next screen we're shown the quantity of the item we need to pick, and there's also a skip picking option if for any reason we can't pick the item. If you're packing as you pick, you can also add a new box from here, providing you have that option enabled in the options screen. Once we've verified the quantity that we've picked, we confirm by pressing the next button. We're then shown a trace summary, which is more useful when picking a batch of orders. This screen can be disabled, as we saw earlier, using the options screen. Clicking next shows us a summary of what we've picked so far. Because we've not been told that the pick is complete, we need to click the Add Another Job button to take us to picking the next item. Here we can see the next item to be picked and the recommended pick location. Clicking the Pick Status button allows us to see what's already been picked and what is still to be picked for this order, and it also allows us to pick in a different order. For example, we could pick the third item next and the second item after that. We will go ahead and continue with the pick as originally planned. We'll scan in the stock code confirm the quantity, and as we've not been told the pick's complete, we'll click Add Another Job to pick the next item. Again, we'll confirm the recommended pick location, scan in the stock code, then we confirm the quantity and click Next, and we can now see that the pick operation is complete, which means we've nothing left to pick for this order, so we can then post the pick job, click OK to confirm, and click Next, and that will take us back to the main menu. Note that picking batches of orders, if necessary defined by different packaging items, can be carried out in exactly the same way as with the existing HHT functionality. Next, we're going to look at how goods are booked in using HHT2, and to do this we've created a purchase order with several items on it. We'll open our device and press the Goods In button. We can select the purchase order to be booked in by either scanning or typing it into the Scan Purchase Order field, or selecting it from the Manual Selection drop-down. By default, this drop-down will only show purchase orders that are due for delivery at a future date. We can include old purchase orders or overdue ones by clicking the Include Non-Due Purchase Orders button. This will now show all outstanding purchase orders, including the percentage of the purchase order still outstanding for delivery, so as you can see we have some part delivered purchase orders. We'll now select the purchase order that we've just created and press the Next button. We're now asked to scan the first item off the delivery into the stock code field. Once we press Next, the system is telling us that we don't have volumetric or weight information defined against this stock item. We can choose to either enter the information now in the fields provided, or we can define it later, which is what we're going to do. We now need to decide whether we want to leave the delivery of this item in arrivals or select a destination location for it to be put away in. We can either scan in a destination location of our choice or use the location lookup button, and the system will then recommend a primary pick location that's available for that particular item. We can also filter the available locations by location type. There are also options for viewing all empty locations and not just locations limited to the particular item we're booking in. Now we've selected a location, we can press the Next button. We're now shown information about the location we've selected, including the available capacity and also the quantity we're expecting of this item to be booked in. If there's insufficient capacity in the location we've selected, we can change the quantity booked in and then book the rest into a different location. We'll now press the Next button to continue. Because we have other items to book in off this delivery, we can't post the job yet, so we'll just add another job ready to book the next item in. We'll scan in the code of the next item, and again we're prompted to enter volumetric and weight information should we wish to do so, but we'll define later. And like before, we'll accept the system's recommended put away location, which is an available primary pick location. We'll now confirm the quantity received as 15, which is the quantity we were expecting, and then click Add Another Job to scan in the next item off the delivery. We will now scan in the next item off the delivery. In this case, this is a batch controlled item. Again, we'll click Define Later for our measurements. We'll use the same process as before to define our put away location. In this case, we have a choice of 2. Because this is a batch controlled item, we're asked to enter a batch code. Now this can be an existing batch code that already exists on our system, or if this item is part of a brand new batch, we can create a new batch on the fly from this screen. We'll now enter our new batch code, and if applicable, the expiry date of the batch, although this is optional. And we can now enter the new batch code into the batch code field. We can now confirm the quantity delivered. Bear in mind, if there's more than one batch on your delivered quantity, you'll need to split them by batch. Because that was the last item received on the delivery, we can now post our goods in jobs. Just like with the existing HHT functionality, the GRN, delivery note and group move will all be created in the background in the main system. Next we're going to look at some new functionality in HHT2, which is the count function. If you remember from earlier in the video, by going to the stock location types table in system data, we can set the count interval that we want for each of our location types. We can now initiate a count by pressing the count button on our device. We can now ask the system to suggest a location to count at random or view a suggestion list of all the locations that are due for counting. Notice that some locations appear twice because there may be more than one item in that location that needs counting. We will now select a location and item to count and press the next button. After our physical count, we can enter the results in the quantity field. Clicking the next button will complete the count, and then we can return to the main menu. As mentioned before, when using the count functionality, we can ask the system to randomly select a location that's due for counting. When we do this, we're presented with three options. We can ask the system to suggest another location, we can count all the stock in the location if it's multi-stock, or we can just count the stock item that's been selected at random. The system will also prompt to count locations that are due for counting whilst picking an order. Here we're in the process of picking an order from a location that's due for counting. Here you can see there's a prompt telling us that the location is due for counting. We don't have to count the location, we can just click next without counting and the system will prompt again the next time. On this occasion though, we will do the count and enter in our count result. We can then continue with the pick as normal. To view the results of our counts, we go to the System Warehouse screen and then open up the HHT Stock Count tab. Here we can see the results of the most recent counts we've done, including the two we did just now. As you can see, this count was correct, as the count quantity agreed with the expected location quantity. We can use the Actions button to automatically accept counts where the amounts match. This will then reset the timer on that location so it won't be due for counting again until the predefined period is elapsed. We're now going to select the count where there's only a difference of 1 and we're going to accept that count, and the system will then make the necessary adjustment to correct the stock level in that location. Because of the large discrepancies in the other two counts that have been carried out, we're going to reject those, which means that those locations will be added back to the list of locations due for counting, effectively asking for a recount. By going to the Stock Adjustment Screen History tab, we can see the adjustment that the system has made as a result of our count. We'll now have a look at the Quick Check functionality. This can be used to check a location to see what's supposed to be there, or to check a stock item to see where it's supposed to be. We'll press the Location Check button and then enter or scan in the location that we want to check. We also have the option of whether or not we want to show items that are linked to that location but don't have any stock present. We can then use the drop down to view a list of the items that are currently linked to or located in that location, including items with a 0 stock level. We will now press the Stock Check button and enter or scan in the code of the item that we want to check the locations for. We will now see a list of the locations that the item is linked to, including the stock levels currently present. To use our HHT device to move stock from one location to another, we use the Group Move function. First, we scan or enter the source location where we're moving the stock from. Then we scan or enter the code of the stock item that we're moving. The quantity to move will default to the total quantity of items in the source location, but we're going to change that. The destination location can either be entered directly or we can use the location lookup, which is what we're going to do now. In the summary screen, we can carry out further moves by clicking the Add Another Job button, but this is the only move we want to make, so we're going to click the Post button to finalise the move. We'll now look at how to carry out stock adjustments using HHT2. Bear in mind that you need to have structured adjustment reasons enabled on your system to be able to use your device to do this. We'll now press the Stock Adjust button and we'll be asked to select the adjustment reason for this adjustment. In this case, we found some stock missing. We can now enter or scan the location code for the adjustment that we want to make. Note that we also have access to the Quick Check functionality, so we can check what the system has to say about the location we've entered. We can now scan or enter the code of the item that we need to adjust. The system will show us the expected quantity in this location, but on this occasion we found one missing, so we're going to enter in a quantity found of 15. Clicking the next button gives us the opportunity to either add another adjustment or to post this one and complete the job. Finally, we're going to look at how the HH2 device can be used to carry out builds. After pressing the Build button on the home screen, we scan or enter the stock code of the item we want to build. We then enter the quantity of the item that we want to build. We then need to tell the system which location the built item is to be put away in, and we can use the location lookup to identify suitable locations. Now we need to start scanning the items that we need as components to complete the build. If we don't know what the components are already, we can use the Build Helper button to display a list of the required components. We will select the first component that we need and press the Next button, and then we're presented with a choice of locations that we can take the component from. Once we've pressed the Next button, we've got a confirmation screen where we can click on the Use Stock Item and Location button to confirm our choice. We can now press the Add Another Job button to continue with the build. Again, we can use the Build Helper to identify the next component that we need. And once again, we select the location that we want to take the component from. We'll now use Add Another Job to select the third and final component for this build. Now the build's complete, we can post the job and confirm. Thanks for watching, and if you need any more information on HHT2, please contact the training department at Khaos Control.